What if I told you that the Queen of Soul wasn't as perfect as everyone thought? For many, many years, Aretha Franklin was seen as a perfect person. She had the voice of respect. She won 18 Grammy Awards, and she was the very first woman ever to join the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But when she was 76 years old, she broke that perfect picture with one huge surprise. She told everyone about 7 musicians she secretly couldn't stand. These were people she once called her friends, her teachers, and even her heroes. They said nice things about her when cameras were around, but then talked badly about her when nobody was watching. And when she finally told everyone their names, the last person on the list made everyone's jaws drop. Ray Charles, the brother who turned his back on her on stage. If there's one name on Aretha Franklin's hate list that surprises everyone the most, it's Ray Charles. Aretha used to call him brother. When these two music legends worked together, everyone thought they could do amazing things. But something happened between them that turned love and respect into a lifetime of not talking to each other. It was the middle of the 1970s, and TV show bosses wanted something magical to happen. They wanted Aretha and Ray performing live together on TV, singing a duet that people would remember and talk about for the rest of their lives. When they practiced together, everything was warm and fun. They laughed together, they sang gospel songs, and they teased each other about their music. "You play piano like it's Sunday morning at church," she told him one time, and he just smiled big. It felt like they were family, like real brother and sister, until the TV cameras turned on and started filming. On the night when they were performing live on television, Ray suddenly started changing everything they had practiced. He changed the timing of the song, he changed the melody, and he even changed the rhythm. It threw Aretha off her game right away. She tried her best to keep up and adapt to his changes, but every single move he made pulled the song further and further away from what they had built together in rehearsals. The people watching in the audience thought what they were seeing was pure genius and brilliance. But Aretha knew the real truth. It wasn't genius at all. Later on, after the show, someone overheard Ray joking around and laughing with the TV producers. He said, "She's great at singing, but she's not quick on her feet when things change." That joke was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Aretha took those words as pure embarrassment and humiliation. Here was a man she looked up to and admired, and he was turning her into a joke for everyone to laugh at. After that terrible night, she promised herself she would never, ever sing with him again, and she kept that promise. She really never did work with him again. Many years later, when newspaper reporters and journalists brought up his name in interviews, she would give them a polite, fake smile and say very carefully, "I wish him well and hope he's doing okay." But behind that smile and those nice words lived a deep hurt and wound that she never, ever let heal or go away. Luther Vandross, the studio battle that broke their respect into pieces. The second person on Aretha's list of people she really couldn't stand was Luther Vandross. And trust me when I say this one was really, really ugly and messy. Their big fight and feud didn't start at a fancy red carpet event or award show. It started inside a music recording studio late at night, with both of them refusing to give up or back down from their positions. In the early 1980s, a music producer named Clive Davis thought it would be genius and brilliant to pair the young, perfectionist music producer Luther with the Queen of Soul. It turned out to be the opposite of genius. From the very first day they worked together, Luther tried to control and shape her sound and her music. He kept rewriting the harmonies, he cut out verses from songs, and he even corrected her singing phrasing in the middle of her takes. Aretha wasn't going to let that happen or put up with it. She had been recording music longer than he had even been alive and working in the music business. Every single suggestion that came from his mouth felt like a huge insult to her. One night, during a really tense and uncomfortable recording session for the song Jump to It, Luther stopped all the band members from playing and snapped at her, "You're over-singing again, Aretha. "You're doing too much." The entire room went completely silent and froze. She looked up from the microphone, staying calm on the outside but burning with anger on the inside, and said to him, "Nobody, and I mean nobody, tells the Queen how to reign and rule." Then she walked straight out of that studio without looking back. The next morning, newspaper reporters got some information that she had taken a break from recording. But the real truth was that she flat out refused to come back to the studio until Clive Davis himself got down on his knees and begged her to return. The album they made ended up becoming a big hit and success, but behind all those smooth and beautiful tracks was complete chaos and disaster. Aretha later told someone she trusted, "He made a good record in the end, but he made it absolute hell to make it." Luther, for his part, brushed it off and didn't seem bothered in his interviews, calling her difficult but brilliant and talented. The two of them never worked together again after that. And many years later, whenever his name came up in conversation, Aretha would press her lips together tightly and say very quietly, "He learned the hard way that this crown doesn't get shared with anyone." Beyoncé, the crown that started a war between two queens. The third person on Aretha's list, and this one still hurts and stings to this day, was Beyoncé. Yeah, that Beyoncé, the super famous one. You would think that two queens of music could share a stage together peacefully, but one single sentence changed everything forever. It was the 2008 Grammy Awards ceremony. Beyoncé walked out onto the stage wearing a beautiful gold dress. She introduced the legendary Tina Turner, and she said these words, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen." The audience in the room went wild and cheered loudly. But back in Detroit, Michigan, Aretha Franklin was watching her TV with a stone cold face, not moving a muscle. To Aretha, what Beyoncé said was like a sin, like breaking a sacred rule. She had spent 4 whole decades, 40 years, earning that crown and that title. Queen of Soul wasn't just a cute nickname people gave her. It was her legacy, her life's work, everything she had built. In her world and in her mind, you absolutely did not hand the title of queen to someone else while she was still alive and breathing. Within just a few hours, Aretha released a public statement to the press and media. She didn't say Beyoncé's name directly, but absolutely everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. She called the moment a cheap shot, and a lapse in respect and manners. Behind the scenes, away from cameras, she told her close friends, "You don't call another woman queen while this one is still breathing and alive." After that Grammy Awards night, she refused to attend or go to any event where Beyoncé was the main star or headliner. She turned down tribute shows, and she even said no to taking photos with her. In her close circle of friends, she started calling Beyoncé that talented girl who forgot to curtsy and bow. Many years later, when Beyoncé dedicated and honored a concert in Detroit to Aretha's memory after she died, fans watching thought it was a sweet reconciliation and makeup. But the people who were close to Aretha knew the real truth. Aretha never, ever forgave that insult. She held on to it until the very end. Keith Richards, the rock legend who insulted her soul music. Number 4 on her hate list was the rock legend himself, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. And believe me when I say this one came completely out of nowhere, like a surprise attack. Aretha wasn't even fighting or feuding with him at all until he opened his big mouth in the year 2007. During an interview with Rolling Stone magazine that was meant to celebrate the history of soul music and rock music, Keith casually and carelessly dropped a line that would start a huge firestorm. He said soul music died with Otis Redding. Aretha's still around and alive, but it's not the same quality anymore. Fans of Keith brushed it off as typical Keith behavior. You know, grumpy, careless with his words, maybe a little drunk when he said it. But Aretha, she absolutely did not laugh or think it was funny. She heard a man who had watched her break barriers and make history reduce her entire career and life's work to just a small footnote in a book. To her, that was complete and total disrespect. Within just a few days, she fired back and responded on a radio show appearance. She spoke in a calm voice, but her words were sharp like a knife. She said, "Some people confused loud guitars with depth and meaning. Bless his heart." It was pure Aretha style. After she said that, the line in the sand was drawn between them. She refused and said no to every single event that involved the Rolling Stones band. She rejected and turned down offers to appear at the same tribute shows and concerts. She even banned and didn't allow any of their music to be played from her own rehearsals and practice sessions. When journalists and reporters tried to soften the story and make it less harsh, she didn't let them. "He wanted to bury soul music," she told one reporter directly. "He can dig his own grave first before he buries mine." Some people thought maybe, just maybe, there would be a time for making up and reconciliation. Aretha made absolutely sure there never would be any makeup or forgiveness. The next time Keith's name came up in conversation, she didn't even roll her eyes or get mad. She simply said very coolly, I don't know who that is," and kept walking away. That was her final word on the entire matter, and everyone around her knew it and understood it perfectly. Dionne Warwick, the funeral lie that ended a friendship forever. The fifth person on her list, and maybe the pettiest but also most personal one, was Dionne Warwick. And if you think Aretha only got angry and mad over music stuff, just wait until you hear this story. Their beef and fight reignited and came back to life at one of the saddest moments you could possibly imagine. At Whitney Houston's funeral in the year 2012. In front of TV cameras, microphones, and half of Hollywood's biggest stars, Dionne said these words, "Aretha's not here at the funeral today, but she is here in spirit. She's Whitney's godmother." Sounds harmless and innocent, right? Not to Aretha, it wasn't. She was at her home that day, feeling very sick, with swollen feet, and she was barely able to stand up and walk. She physically couldn't attend the funeral, but Dionne made it sound like she had skipped it on purpose and didn't care enough to show up. And that one little sentence spread like wildfire gossip everywhere. Newspaper headlines read things like, "Aretha snubs and ignores Whitney's funeral." She felt completely humiliated and embarrassed. For 5 whole years, Aretha stayed quiet and didn't say anything publicly. Then in the year 2017, she struck back like only she could, with a 5-page-long fax message to the Associated Press news organization. In that fax, she accused Dionne of telling blatant lies and using a sacred, holy event like a funeral to stir up drama and gossip. She ended the fax with cold, harsh words. "Dionne knows exactly what she did wrong." That line hit the music industry like a thunderclap, like a huge bolt of lightning. Dionne tried to laugh it off later, saying to reporters, "I don't care what she says about me." But people on the inside say that Aretha never, ever forgave her for what happened. "You don't lie about me at a funeral," she reportedly told a close friend in private. From that moment on, whenever Dionne's name came up in conversation, Aretha's eyes would narrow into thin slits and she would mutter under her breath, "Some people can sing sweet and beautiful, but still be sour and rotten inside their hearts." Billy Joel, the rehearsal that destroyed their duet dream forever. The 6th person on her list was the piano man himself, Billy Joel, and this one really stung and hurt because unlike all the other people on this list, Aretha actually admired him at first and thought he was talented. She respected his songwriting skills, the way he honored musical tradition and history, and the respect he seemed to have for the great musicians who came before him. So when someone pitched and suggested the idea of a joint concert together in the early 2000s, she said yes without hesitation. She thought it would be a classy, elegant night of beautiful music, with 2 icons sitting at one piano together. But what she actually got was something very, very different from what she expected. From the very first rehearsal and practice session, The chemistry between them was off and wrong. Billy joked around too much, and he treated the room like it was a casual bar instead of a sacred stage for serious musicians. He called her Ree, like they were old buddies, and he kept saying things like, "Let's loosen up and relax, have fun with it, and don't be so serious." But Aretha didn't loosen up the way he wanted. She prepared seriously. She commanded the room with authority. She led with dignity and respect. The final straw that broke everything came during a break in rehearsal when Billy grinned at her and said, "Come on, Ree, take a shot of whiskey with me. Lighten the mood and relax a little." The entire room went completely silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Aretha didn't drink alcohol. She never had in her entire life. That joke hit her like a direct insult to who she was. She calmly closed her sheet music, stood up from her seat, and said very quietly but firmly, "You play your way and do your thing. I'll keep my dignity and self-respect." Then she walked out of that rehearsal and never came back. Concert was canceled and called off within just 1 week. There was no press release, no official explanation given to the public. Close friends later remembered and recalled her saying, "He plays piano like a beautiful poet, but he talks like a fool who doesn't know better." And that was it. That was the end. She erased him from her life completely. To Aretha, respect wasn't about how famous you were or how many records you sold. It was about knowing your place and treating people the right way. Billy crossed that line, even if he thought he was just being charming and friendly. In her book, in her rules of life, it meant you were done, you were finished. There was no coming back from that. Eminem, the Detroit silence she never forgave or forgot. And finally, the 7th and last name on her list, the one that absolutely nobody saw coming or expected. Eminem, same city, same streets, but they lived in completely different worlds. Aretha was Detroit's heartbeat, the soul of the city, long before Marshall Mathers was even old enough to write rhymes and rap. She gave back to the city that raised her in so many ways. She did gospel fundraisers, charity concerts, and she spent time mentoring and teaching young talent. So when Eminem exploded onto the scene and became famous worldwide, and he started calling himself the Pride of Detroit, Aretha expected something really simple in return, just a nod, maybe one single lyric of acknowledgement and respect. But it never, ever came. Song after song, album after album, year after year, he shouted out and mentioned every single Detroit legend except for her. To the public watching, it meant nothing special. To Aretha, it was deeply personal and hurtful. "He knows exactly who I am," she told a close friend in private. "He just chose not to care or acknowledge me." She saw it as disrespect and an insult, not from a complete stranger, but from one of her own people, someone from her own city. When a reporter asked her about him in a 2010 radio interview, she gave a one-word answer that said everything: noise. That single word was Aretha's version of slamming a door in someone's face. Eminem never replied to her, never apologized for ignoring her, and never sampled her voice in any of his songs. "It's easy to fight someone who insults you to your face," she once said to someone. "It's much harder when they pretend you don't even exist at all." And that was it. That was the final word. No collaboration, no phone call, no reconciliation or makeup. To Aretha, being ignored and treated with indifference was the cruelest insult of all. And that's exactly why the hometown boy, someone from her own city, made it onto her list of people she couldn't stand. So now you know all 7 names that haunted and bothered the Queen of Soul until her very final days on this earth. Do you think Aretha was right to hold onto those grudges for so long? Or did her pride and stubbornness cost her peace and happiness? Tell us what you think down in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you were shocked and surprised by any of these stories, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more untold stories and secrets behind music's greatest legends and stars.